everyone, Amanda here. So today I'm going to make the cover for my soft autumn journal. I'm going to make a small journal this month because I know I'm going to make a massive journal for my next collection. So I thought I'd keep it simple. So I've got my printed papers ready. I'm going to be adding extra things from my stash, book pages, maybe some tea dyed, maybe some lined pages. But for now, I've got these pages, and for now, for each signature, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of the printed pages in each signature. Okay, so because I've only got 2 signatures, I'm going to make a small spine. Now, the measurements of these can vary depending on whether you are an A4 size user or a letter size user. So I will link a video in the description box below, and that video tells you my formula for sizing these covers, and it will work whatever size papers you're using. Okay, so I'm using A4, so mine are always 6 by 8.5 front and back. And then the spine, and this will be the same on the width, no matter what size you're using, the width of the spine is 1.5. And I determine that by, I have half an inch space from each side from my cover. Then I'll have a signature. Then I'll have a half an inch space and another signature. So half an inch, signature, half an inch, signature, half an inch. And that's how I do it. Okay, so these two I'm going to wrap with white cardstock. I'm using a good quality one. And then this one I'm going to wrap separately, and we're going to do a different lay flat method. Okay, and I'm going to wrap that in a printed background page that's in lightweight cardstock. Okay, you can see where it's caught my printer there, but it doesn't matter, we can still use it. It will get covered up when we layer the inside bit. So that's what we're going to do. So very, very easy. Okay, all we're doing is wrapping these 2 pieces in our white cardstock. Now I do have this book binding. So I've decided to speed the video up because it took me quite a while, because I was doing it very slowly and very carefully. So I'm using this bookbinding tool. I am lining it up on the corner of my 12 by 12 sheet of white cardstock to help me line my covers up. If I remember, I'll leave a link to it in the description box below. I'm using a thin glue that doesn't dry fast to cover the chipboard, so that I've got plenty of time to move it if it goes out of place. But using my bookbinding tool is going to help me keep it straight, and it's going to give me that lovely border all the way around, which is going to be adequate for us to wrap around. So spread that glue out so that you don't get lumpy bits. Okay, use a slow drying glue rather than fast, because fast drying glue will dry too fast and you'll end up with lumpy bits under your cardstock. So I'm using the bookbinding tool there to make sure I've got an even border all the way around. It helps keep it straight, so I'm not wasting cardstock. Checking it twice. Measure twice, cut once. What's the saying? I forget. So then I'll join those pencil marks up and I can cut that out, so that I'm not wasting cardstock. And the offcuts there I'm going to use later on in the journal for adding the signatures to the covers. So then I've put tape all the way around the chipboard. There I'm explaining about saving the spare. All the way around both pieces, and I've waited until that glue is dry. Then I'm using my bookbinding tool and I'm using the corner miter section. If not, use a ruler, go about 1/8 of an inch and then cut it at an angle. This tool just makes life quicker. It's not essential, you can still do it. Just make sure you're leaving at least 1/8 of an inch gap on the corner there, so that when you wrap that cardstock around, it's covering the corners of the chipboard. Otherwise it'll show and it'll look ugly. So what I do is I'll then score right along the edge of the chipboard. It gives the paper some memory, so it makes it a neater fold. Okay, and then what we're going to do is using my bone folder there all the way around to make sure that that paper's already got some memory. Alright, you can just put it on your desk and fold it like so, or use your bone folder. Then I'm going in with a strong quick drying glue. I'm using Nouveau glue for this. I'm not using the glue that I used previously because that takes longer to dry and it's quite wet and it squeezes out a lot. The Nouveau glue is just a little bit, it dries faster. But with my tape as well, that's going to help keep the edge over while the glue dries. So plenty of glue, use your bone folder, coax it over and make sure it's wrapped really tightly, and make sure you burnish all of that. And then I run over the edges to make those edges flat up against the chipboard. It just looks more finished and neater, okay? And then back over with the bone folder again to make sure that that's all down. And then you can see me just moving the tape out of the way to do the next part. So that bead of glue there is going right up against the edge of the chipboard first to make sure that that cardstock wraps very neatly and tightly around your chipboard. You don't want any gaps. And then push your bone folder up to it. And moving the tape out of the way, I'm going to remove my tape and then I'm going to start and I'm going to coax that over quite, and push it so it's nice and tight. You know, it's not got any bubbles or anything like that. And then just flatten it with the bone folder. And again, I'm burnishing the edges there so that it's nice and neat. Make sure you get the adhesion right down, right to the edges there. Okay, and then you will see that, there you go, you'll have a little bit overlapping. Press that down as hard as you can, okay, flatten it, and then it will tuck in when you lift the side parts, well, top and bottom bit over. So we're doing the same again. We're going to remove our tape, we're going to put glue right up against the edge of the chipboard and right onto where those little notches, nubbins are that you've just pressed down, okay, that you've just flattened, so that all folds in neatly and glues flat, okay. If you've got any seepage, wipe it off with your hands. Be careful working with white cardstock, it's easy to get dirty. So there we go, you can see that that's wrapped nicely. Now if your corners are a little bit sharp and poke out further than the chipboard, you can see me there, I'm tapping it. Tap it while the glue's wet and that paper will mould to the corners and you'll get nice, neat corners, crisp corners. So bash each side and then do further burnishing to make sure it's lovely and flat. So again, right up against the chipboard edge, then all over the rest of the flat, making sure you've got it over the little parts that you press down. Wrap and burnish. And you do the same thing for both pieces. Okay, take your time over it. I've had to speed the video up, otherwise it would have been about 50 minutes long, because I really took my time, because I wanted it to be neat, I wanted it to be nice. This is a technique worth learning because it is a fold flat method, which is unusual for journals. This is a technique used for mini albums, okay, so it's worth learning because then you can use it on your mini albums and your folios. So the spine here, my piece measures 3.5 inches wide. Okay, I've put tape top and bottom, and I'm going to centralise the spine and adhere it. So to centralise the spine, all you need to do is measure from the left edge inwards 1 inch and make a mark. That is where your spine wants to be. It wants to be at 1 inch. Okay, you can see me doing it, and then you'll have 1 inch at the other side as well. That's because your paper is 3.5 inches wide, your spine is 1.5. So that gives you 1 inch either side. So make a mark 1 inch, and then you can make sure that your spine is on there straight. Line it up with the markings. I've used tape here. We don't always have to use glue for everything. Tape because we want it down quick. We want it down nicely. And I'm measuring about 1/2 inch there from the top just to help me line it up. So I'm lining it up along, more or less along the 1/2 inch mark from the top, and then using my pencil marks that I measured from the outer edging at 1 inches. Glue against the chipboard again, just like with the front covers, okay? And then I'm putting a little bit of glue around the corners and just on the top edge. So then you very carefully coax that around. Now this is lighter weight cardstock because it's printable cardstock. I wouldn't be able to put the other card that I've used through my printer, it's too thick. Okay, this is 200 GSM, so I've got to be a little bit more careful. So I'm coaxing it around, and then where the edge of that chipboard is there, I'm pressing carefully with the edge of my bone folder, so it's right up against the lip, and you can see a defined line where that paper is folding around the chipboard. So it's really, really tightly in there. Really important step. Okay, you don't want any gaps. Okay, so coax it around. Find the edge of the chipboard with your bone folder and press right against that chipboard. Then flatten it. Flatten the rest, and that tape will tape that down. Okay, and you can see that I'm going in with the bone folder and I've got defined lines. So here I'm just going to do a very slight notch, which is a triangular cut, but I'm staying quite far away from the chipboard. I'm just doing this to remove a little bit of the bulk, but do not go anywhere near the chipboard or you will expose it and it will look ugly. Okay, you want to make sure that those corners stay covered. Alright, so now you want to turn it over, and with the heat of your hand, and if you don't have long nails, find the edge of the chipboard and mould the paper to the edge of it from the outside, and then start gently coaxing it with a bone folder. Do this in stages, not all at once, and don't be rough or you will go through the cardstock. Okay, and then you can see that I'm working that paper carefully in stages, a little bit at a time, to get that paper. We're not adding any glue, we don't need to add any glue, but we're moulding that paper around the chipboard. So you've got a very defined, you can see there, a very defined shape where that is tucked, where it's scored and burnished. Okay, so I've wrapped both of my pieces, and now we're going to join them all together. So you need, with the paper facing you, you're going to add some tape, and tape is better than glue for this technique. For the spine, and I'm using Scorpal tape, which is very strong. I don't recommend any other tape. Okay, but use what you have. Just Scorpal tape will hold longer over time, and don't do it right up to the edge of where the edge of the spine is. Leave a bit of a gap, maybe about 1/8 of an inch. Okay, and the reason for that is you don't want your tape showing. When you take that backing off, if there's any of the tape that's not attached to the cover, it will show. So we'll leave a small gap. Trim off any excess at the top, okay, because you don't want anything sticking to it. Cat hairs, dog hairs, small children, whatever. I'm trying to be serious because I'm in teacher mode, so there might be less giggles in this video, okay? Because I'm trying to focus. Right, and then what you want to do is, on the inside of your covers, you want to put tape top to bottom, but probably about 1/4 of an inch from the top and 1/4 of an inch in from the bottom, and not right up to the edge. Again, maybe 1/8 of an inch away. So you can see that I've forgotten to leave that 1/4 of an inch there. So I'm just pushing my tape back, and that is just to make sure that no tape is showing. Okay, because of the way this is constructed. It's a little bit different than normal covers. We don't want that tape showing. Alright. And the reason we're not using glue is because one of the principles of this method of cover, this lay flat method of cover, is that you don't use a lot of glue. And so glue doesn't go in the folds, and so then your paper doesn't split and crack. Because according to the person who developed this idea, that is what makes it crack. I think it was Michelle Allen. Is it? I can't remember a channel name. I'll try and remember. And then you use your scoreboard, okay, but you can't see the top of mine, to butt the top and the side of your cover and butt up the top of your spine section. It helps you keep it all straight. I know I'm out of shot there, and I am sorry, but you know, use the lip of your scoreboard to help you keep it straight. If you don't have a scoreboard, you use a gridded mat or a T-ruler to make sure you've got those lined up nicely. Okay? I don't know what I'm waffling on about and pointing to there, I can't remember. Oh, I think it's because mine's not perfectly straight. I didn't get mine perfectly straight, and I'm like, shall I take it off and do it again? And then I thought, no, it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. It's a hair width out of line. It doesn't matter, okay? The more you do this technique, the better you'll get at it. And I was kind of rushing for the video. So again, I'm using my scoreboard, the top of my scoreboard, to keep all of this straight, lining that up, okay, and line them up and just leave a hair width between the cover and the spine. You can see I've left a slight gap, okay, so they're not pressed right up against each other, but almost. All right, and then remove your tape. Alright, so now that's all together, and as you can see, it gives you a fully flexible spine. It's an awesome technique to learn, and as I say, it's perfect for journals because that just lays completely flat now, and it's a brilliant technique for your mini albums and folios. So now we need to add the signatures. So I've gathered all of my signatures together. I've added a few extra pages. I think I've ended up with about 11. Okay, I'm not overfilling. I'm doing a slim journal, but some of my embellishments, such as my lovely hidden paper clips that I like to do, are quite bulky. So holes, find the middle of your page, poke a hole. Then 1 inch down from the top and 1 inch up from the bottom, poke a hole. Do the same on both signatures. Clip them together, and whenever you poke the holes, have the signatures in a V, not flat. So now this is what we're going to sew the signatures to, and then it's going to adhere to the cover. So I've cut it the height of my covers minus a hair width. Okay, my covers are 8.5. So I've cut it just shy of 8.5, and it's 4 inches wide. Okay, so whatever the height of your journal, okay, minus a hair width, and the width is 4 inches, and that's the same no matter what your paper size is. Then I've done 2 faint score lines. One is at 1.5 and one is at 2.5. And on those lines, that's where we're going to sew the signatures. Okay, now you could draw a faint pencil mark. Okay, I'm actually just gently folding mine so that I can see those lines. Now once it's glued in your cover, you're not going to see those folds. Okay, it doesn't, so you can do that. And then you want to line your signatures inside there, and you can see there's a small increment top and bottom. Make sure they're the same. Then look where your holes are that you poked, and where those holes are, draw a corresponding dot on the score line with a pencil. Okay, this is the beginner's way of doing it. If you're experienced, you'll probably be able to just clip the whole things together, line it up and do it by eye. I can, but I was showing here how to do it the beginner way. So then you line the other one up at the other side, okay, making sure you've got the same increments top and bottom so that they're going to line up once they're sewn in. And again, make those marks. All right, make sure that they're lined up, make sure they check once, twice, check 3 times, then make your marks, and they should more or less be directly across from each other. Okay, and the reason we're not measuring and doing it with a measurement is because, you know, doing this, it's not a precise thing. So sometimes you just have to do it by holding things near each other and measuring it that way rather than using a ruler. So I've poked all of my holes, and now I'm going to sew my signatures in using the 3-hole pamphlet stitch, and I'm using dental floss here, and I do double it over, so I do about, I don't know, I use loads, about 4.5 to 5 times the height of my pages. Okay, and then I thread it on my needle and I double it over. So then you start in the middle, you pull it through and go through up to the top. Don't forget to sew it to your spine piece as well. It can be a bit fiddly, but you know, the more you practice, the easier it will become. Make sure your tails don't pull through. Go down to the bottom and through your spine piece, out the back, pull it all nice and tight, and then you go back through the middle. Okay, making sure you're not splitting any, that your needle's not going through any of those threads. Then 1 thread at one side and 1 thread at the other. Then you just need to pull everything tight. Okay, now do that firmly but gently, because if you pull too hard all at once, you could rip your paper, and it doesn't matter what thread you use, that will happen if you put too much pressure on. So firmly but carefully, a little bit at a time, making sure that those threads are nice and taut, and then you can tie it in a knot. Okay, I tie mine in a double knot and then I just cut it off. Some people leave them dangling, put beads on them and goodness knows what. I don't do that. And it's nice and close to there, to the spine part, with no gaping. That's when you know you've done it right. Then you do the same with the second one. Okay, so the second signature on. So here now, I'd skipped a part and I've got both of my signatures in. Now I'm putting glue on the only on the chipboard here. We don't want any glue in any of the folds on that cover. Okay, because to stay true to the method, the idea is you don't get any glue in any of the where the cover opens and shuts. So then what we're going to do is we're going to put tape at the far side of each of the gussets. Alright, and again about 1/4 of an inch gap top and bottom. Not right up to the top, not right up to the bottom, and not right up to the edge of the cover. And you do that on both cover pieces. That will just help hold it all whilst the glue dries. Right, now this can be a tricky bit. Alright, getting it lined up. But if you did do score marks or pencil marks, when you open the signatures and look in the centre, I've given you a lovely big gap. That's to give our journal room to breathe, but also helps you line it up. So line it up straight. You will, because we've cut it shy of the cover size, you will be able to see the cover just slightly and see those gussets where the cover's closed, and you will be able to line it up. And then with your pages open as well, that's another guide as to whether you've got it in straight. It really does come together very, very simply if you just take your time and look what you're doing. Okay, just don't get any of that glue in the gussets, which is why we've used the tape at the other side. Alright, so now holding the weight of the pages so that it doesn't lift the glue, take the tape off carefully, okay, and adhere that wing down flat. And the same at the other side. You're just adhering the wings down flat. Okay, we're going to go back in a moment and add some more glue, don't worry. So now you can go back in the centre, make sure that that centre glue is dry. I would advise that you go away, make a brew and leave it to dry. Okay, and then when it's all dry, find those where the covers fold and very gently and carefully just make, you know, a burnish mark or a crease mark where they fold. Okay. Yeah, and if you've waited for your glue to dry, then it won't re-lift and it won't buckle and all of that silliness. Then we're just going to go in with some quick drying glue along the edges of the wings to adhere it fully. Now we're going to be putting either patterned paper or a pocket over or something else over, so that's going to give that extra sturdiness as well. So that block with those signatures is going to go nowhere, but still make sure you've adhered it all down nicely. So that you've got no gaps when you lift your cover up between any of the layers of cardstock and the chipboard, and you know you get nice neat finish. So it's a slightly longer technique than just a basic wrap with the fabric tape, but it's worth learning because it is the fold flat method. As I say, really it's a technique used for album making, but I thought it would be really useful technique for us journal makers to learn, because like I say, it makes it for, you know, fully open your journal flat, which is one of the downsides of journals. You know, you can end up with gator mouth and you can end up where you can't open them because the cover's not flexible enough. Well, with this method, as you can see, both those signatures lay completely flat. It's a fantastic, fantastic technique to learn. It's well worth giving it a try. Even if your first one's not, you know, perfect, it's worth trying. Look how flat those pages lay. Perfect. Give it a try. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Look how lovely that cover is.